Hello and welcome to this episode of the Spiced In Podcast. My name is Jacob, and this week we're talking about Chapter 15 of The Mandalorian, The Believer. Before we get to that, we have some brief Star Wars news to cover. Well, actually, I take that back. We have a lot of Star Wars news to cover, enough to where I'm having to push off Myths and Fables conversation yet again, because there was an investors meeting for Disney, and we learned a whole lot about the future content roadmap for the Star Wars franchise in movie and TV. So, with that being said, our first news item is we got the next announcement of a High Republic book, and that's The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. The Rising Storm will be the next adult novel, and I'm not even going to talk about the release date because we'll get there. So, The Rising Storm, it was originally announced back in October during the New York City Comic-Con Metaverse panel that there'd be another wave of High Republic novels in the summer of 2021, and this is the first one we've learned about. So it's the Rising Storm, and the cover features Padawan Bell Zettifar, newly appointed Jedi Council member Stellan Gios, and Ty Yorick, who is a mercenary with a lightsaber. So that's pretty cool, and it came with an announcement later in the week that both Greater Good and Rising Storm are being pushed forward a week in their publishing. So now Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good has been moved up to an April 27th, 2021 release date from May the 4th, and Rising Storm has been pushed up to June 29th for a release date. So that's exciting. We're getting those books a week earlier each. And yeah, there's that. And then of course, the Disney's Investors Call. I listed like 4 hours of this event. A lot of news on Disney Plus and its evolution, especially in the international market. But we got, a whole ton of new announcements for new content. They told us at the beginning that there'd be 10 new series on Disney Plus for Star Wars in the next several years, and they announced a handful of those. So, Filoni and Favreau are coming together to do a few more shows. So we already had The Mandalorian, of course, and that's going to continue on for now. We're also getting Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic, as well as Ahsoka. So, these three shows will take place in the same part of the timeline, and will be able to interact with each other in an MCU, or I like to think of it more as a DC television way, where they're going to be taking place at similar times. I don't know if they're going to be releasing like on the same weeks, which will allow them to do the DC TV style like crossover event every season. But yeah, we have all those that are going to be working together. We also were confirmed the Lando show that's going to be directed by the director of Dear White People, so that'll be pretty cool. We have Star Wars Visions, which is a team up with some Japanese animators to do like an anime style kind of anthology of Star Wars stories. So that's super neat. Sounds interesting. We have a droid story. We also have Andor is the official title of the Cassian Andor series. It's been confirmed to be 12 episodes long and is starting filming, I believe, pretty soon, or they've just gotten into it. So that's exciting. We also got a full trailer for the Bad Batch show, which looked amazing. And we saw a very familiar character in that show trailer. We saw Fennec Shand running around a lot. So I'm interested to see how her character interacts with them. I really like her in The Mandalorian, so I'm glad to see more. And from what we saw, it seemed like it was kind of around the general timeline of Order 66 going into the early days of the Empire, which is what we were told when this show was announced back in like March or April, I believe. We got more information on the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which is just titled Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. We got the announcement of it last year at D23, but this year we found out that none other than Hayden Christensen will be coming back to reprise his role as Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker. So that is super exciting. The last two projects that were announced are some of my favorite. The next one is Acolyte, which is Leslie Headland's series that we were told about back in earlier this year. We were told at that time that Leslie Headland, the showrunner of Russian Doll, would be getting her own series on Disney Plus, and it would have a female-centered cast. We don't know really anything now. We have like a word art title. But the big news about it is a show that is taking place in the last days of the High Republic, which is super exciting for me. I love the High Republic. I'm super hyped about it. My guess right now, if I have to speculate, is that it will be a show about the Night Sisters / Dathomirians. So we have a title called Acolyte. There are Night Sister Acolytes in the game Galaxy Heroes, Yeah, I know I'm pointing like the bad, well, not bad, the Star Wars mobile game, which is a bit of a stretch, but I'm gonna roll with it. It takes place back then. It's a female center cast, and Night Sisters, all women. So I think it makes sense, especially if we're also tying into the dark side. Yeah, I think it could be an interesting show, and I'm really excited to see what comes of it. And the last big announcement was the newest Star Wars movie will come out in holiday 2023, Rogue Squadron, directed by Patty Jenkins, which is incredibly exciting. We've gotten little hints of Rogue Squadron coming back into canon in the past couple of months. Specifically, they had a story in From a Certain Point of View, The Empire Strikes Back. Wedge was in Star Wars Squadrons. There's just been like little hints at them over the past couple months, and we're getting a full-blown, completely original Rogue Squadron movie from Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 84. Holiday 2023. Super excited about that. Not much we know about right now, but I'll be interested to see where they go with this. They did mention Taika Waititi's movie is still coming. It's in pre-production. He's writing it right now, so it's going to be a little while, but that's still happening. No mention, however, of the Rian Johnson trilogy that's basically been silent since it was announced, I think, back in 2017. If you're a fan of The Last Jedi and his movies, I'd be getting a little concerned at this point. It's not impossible that it will come back, but I am not feeling great about its fate right now. But with that said, that whole slew of announcements, we are finally ready to talk about The Mandalorian, Chapter 15, The Believer. So, non-spoilers real quick. I had fun with this episode. It was different than what I expected. Where we left off was very interesting. I'm kind of interested / concerned on how they're going to land this with the end of the season. There's just not a lot of time left. Like, I feel like they're going to need a 90-minute episode next week to really pull off everything and leave us with a satisfying conclusion that's not just a super cliffhanger. And to be fair, I kind of expect at this point to get at least somewhat of a cliffhanger. But yeah, it was a fun, cool episode. And that's the quick non-spoilers. We're going to go in spoilers in 3, 2, 1. So, our super quick plot rundown: they spring Mayfield from prison to help them get some information from the Imperials. He sends them to the planet of Morak to get to an Imperial base there and hack into their terminal. So Mando and him go undercover, get to the base, blast their way out, and head on to the next stop of the mission. So, this was a really cool episode. We open up on this like prison planet with one of the guard droids from the last season, with the last episode with Mayfeld on the prison ship. And he's cutting up a TIE cockpit. It looks like a scrap planet, similar to Baraka from Jedi Fallen Order and Resistance Reborn, but not the same planet. They have Cara Dune take him into custody, which allows him to get out there, and he meets the crew at Slave One, which includes Cara Dune, Fennec Shand, Boba Fett, and of course Mando. I looked around on the scrap planet to see if there's anything interesting in the background, but it's pretty much almost entirely TIEs, with a few like Walker cockpits. There was a single U-wing, and of course all the AT-AT platform cranes that were in the second episode of the season are all around. But nothing. I tried to see if like maybe there was like a TIE Defender cockpit or something like that. But no like triple strut that would indicate that. We also see Boba Fett repainted his armor, and it looks pretty slick. It's got like a nice matte finish to it, and I'm really enjoying it. We also see the inside of Slave One, which has a really awesome gyro cockpit that I don't think we've ever seen before. Like the best look at the cockpit that we got was in, of course, Attack of the Clones when they're leaving Kamino, but it looks like it spins as it changes its orientation, which is super sweet. It also explains how you can get in there a little bit more easily. Mayfeld has them go to Morak to try and get a terminal so he can get information on the location of Moff Gideon's ship, which is a Rhydonium refining base. Rhydonium is a super volatile explosive material, which is very dangerous to have. The plan is to hijack a transport of Rhydonium and use that to send 2 people into the base and steal the information. Of course, one of them is going to have to be Mayfeld, but they're going through who the second person can be. But we learn that the base is run by ex-ISB or Imperial Security Bureau. They're basically like the CIA of the Star Wars world. You may remember Agent Callus from Rebels is an ISB agent, but that rules out Cara Dune because she's on New Republic database, and also Fennec Shan is wanted by the ISB, so that rules out her. And Boba Fett has the great line of, well, they might recognize my face because, all the clones had the same face as him, so that would be a problem. So it leaves only Mando and Mayfeld. They go down and hijack a transport, and Mando decides to put on I believe it's Mountain Troopers is the costume that they take. But yeah, he puts on this armor and gives his armor to Cara to take back to the ship, and the two of them start riding towards their target. They see some exploded transports on the way, of course casualties of this dangerous material that they're hauling, and they're told they need to maintain a steady speed in order to keep it from combusting. As we pass through this small village, I think we get some of the best moments in the episode. The core of this episode is really about, it's titled Believer. It's about the beliefs of these individuals being challenged. Mayfeld tells Mando about how it doesn't matter who's controlling the galaxy, it's all the same to these people, which is nothing new. We've heard this from a few characters throughout the saga before. The effect of the layperson is pretty minor. At least that's what they believe. He said that Alderaan and Mandalore had differing beliefs, but it doesn't matter. They're all dead now. Everyone's the same. Everyone has their lines they can't cross until things get messy. You just have to do what you need to do to sleep at night, which is a pretty just straightforward, brutal way to look at it. But it makes sense for where he is in his life and what he's been through. We see transports start to blow up one after another, and it turns out there's a band of pirates on these repulsor lifts going around trying to detonate the transports with thermal detonators. We see an awesome spear fight on top of it with Mando going at them, and you see his instincts start to bite back at him. He goes to block these blows with these spears with his forearms, but he's not wearing Beskar anymore. This is like plastoid, and it just shatters, and everything he's been trained to do over the years is slowly working against him. But he's still awesome and manages to fight off all of them with the detonator and get it out and blows up a bunch of the crafts. But the next three come flying through the smoke, and it is really not looking good for him when we have a super cool moment. They're heading towards the base, about to cross the bridge, when suddenly two TIEs come screaming through the sky and blow up the rest of the pirates. I thought it was very, very similar to the episode back on Navarro, where they had the troop transport. It's kind of inverse, though. In that episode, the TIEs are coming back at them when Mando comes flying through the sky to rescue them. So I think it's a very big visual similarity, just with the flip of, the allegiances and what sides coming to save who. A battalion of stormtroopers and shore troopers come out to take the rest of the pirates out, and everyone gets cheered as they enter the base. It's very reminiscent of the Battle of Yavin when they return to base after blowing up the Death Star. But they get out and shake some hands, and Mayfeld tells them that they need to head to the officers' mess hall to get to the terminal. Unfortunately, Mayfeld gets cold feet because he sees an old officer of his sitting in the room. Mando goes to do it himself, but Mayfeld warns him that the terminal will need to scan his face for him to gain access, which seems arbitrary because it doesn't seem to care who he is as long as he is someone. I guess it might just have only rejections if he pops up on, a database, but a little strange. He might be trying to confirm that they are an Imperial officer or something like that, but doesn't matter. He manages to peel all the data off on the Arquitins and where its location is, but he gets confronted by Mayfeld's old officer who asks for his TK number. But Mayfeld runs in to save him, saying that Mando had some hearing loss in an old operation, and tries to get them out of there. However, the officer won't let them leave. He wants to have a drink with the only surviving transport from the latest Rhydonium run. They're going around trying to figure out what to toast to, and Mayfeld suggests Operation Cinder. If you played Battlefront 2, that's probably pretty familiar to you. It's also mentioned in the Aftermath books, but the Emperor had lots of plans for what would happen in case something wrong befalls the Empire. And Operation Cinder is basically, hey, you guys suck. If you let me die, the galaxy doesn't deserve the control of the Empire, and just we should burn down and destroy everything. So they just go around and just start blasting the galaxy to bits. So that's Operation Cinder. It is very costly to everyone, even the Imperials. He doesn't care. He thinks the Empire's weak if they failed him that miserably. Mayfeld mentioned that he lost 5 to 10,000 people in his like platoon during this operation at Burnin Khan. But the officer goes on a little speech, a little tirade. He says that everyone thinks they want freedom, but what they really want is order. And once they realize this, they'll welcome the Empire back with open arms. I thought this was probably the best scene by far in the whole episode. It reminded me a lot of the scene in Inglourious Bastards with the strudel. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. But it's just like that really strong like tension and dramatic irony where it's centered around a table. You have these two characters building tension where one of them is so on edge the whole time, and you feel that watching the scene. I thought it was really well done. Except for this time, in Inglourious Bastard, there's only one person who really has power over the other, but in this scene, there is power on both sides, which makes it a little. I think it takes the tension off a little bit, especially knowing they have plot armor. But it was still a very interesting scene, and we also we have what does the title of the episode, The Believer, mean? We have Mayfeld, who believes that nothing really matters at the end of the day on the galactic scale. It's all about, living your life and trying to just do what you can to get by. And you have Mando, who is all about his, his creed, his beliefs in the way of the Mandalore. But, he takes his helmet off here. He goes against everything he knew and was born and raised to do, to sacrifice it all for getting Grogu back. You have this Imperial officer who believes that, it's okay to kill a bunch of people. It's okay for all this carnage to occur as long as order is maintained throughout the galaxy. So you have all these just beliefs being challenged here. And to be fair, I don't think the officer had his beliefs challenged in the end. He's still, I think, stuck by what he thought to the end. Maybe with more time and, more people confronting what he thought, he might have changed, but he still stuck true to the glory of the Empire and the sanctity of peace across the galaxy, regardless of how it was maintained and achieved. And I think that's really the core of what this episode was about. But anyways, Mayfeld shoots the guy, and they just start blasting their way out and make their way to the roof. Of course, Kara and Fennec provide sniper support, and Boba swoops in on the Slave One to get them out of there. And as they're flying away, Mayfeld grabs the cyclo rifle, which is like the long gun from Tatooine that Boba has, and nails a container of Rhydonium as they're flying away. Because you have to remember, he was a sharpshooter, and he sends the whole base blowing up in flames, which was a super cool moment. As they're leaving, they're getting tailed by 2 TIEs, and Boba Fett drops the seismic charge from Attack of the Clones. And that was so sick. I was watching the episode, I had my headphones on. I normally wear only one ear of my headphones because they block out a lot of noise. I just need to know if my dog's getting into something, to be able to hear that. And once I see this bomb start falling, immediately take both of the ear cups and put them over my head, just press them down, waiting for it to just boom. I love that sound effect so much. And it was really cool to see that come back here. But in the end, they let Mayfeld go for, making the right decisions and helping them take this out and helping them save Grogu. And they go on to tell the New Republic that he died in the explosion. So he gets left, and they get to go on their business and go try and save Baby Yoda. And at the very end, Moff Gideon gets a transmission from Mando, and it's the exact same speech he gave him at the end of season 1 in the bar. He's like, "You have something I want." It's the same exact thing. The only big difference is in Moff Gideon's version of the speech, he calls Grogu it. It's "You will give it to me," and then Mando is feels that Grogu, not human, but Grogu is sentient and something that matters. So he says he will be back with me. So that's the main difference, is just the humanization of Grogu. But super cool to see that repetition there. And that leaves us with one episode left, which is crazy to think about. It's hard to see how they're gonna shove everything they need into one episode, but I'll be excited regardless. And yeah, we'll see. Go from there. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in and listening this week. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, follow it, whatever you need to do. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at SpicedInPod. Thanks to Graham Bull for our music, and as always, may the Force be with you.